Home prices in Texas are dropping heading into 2025, especially in the 10 cities on this list. If you're a home buyer investor in Texas, you better pay attention to this video because this market has experienced a rapid shift over the last year where prices are now dropping. Starting with our number 10 city, San Antonio. Home values are down by 2.4% in San Antonio over the last year. Just take a look at this, everyone. The inventory in San Antonio's housing market has tripled over the last 3 years to 12,000 homes for sale. That's the most supply in at least a decade. A trend that's occurring all across the Texas housing market. The inventory has absolutely skyrocketed to a level that we haven't seen in at least a decade. For instance, you can see in Texas there's 115,000 homes for sale at the end of 2024. This is up more than 20% over the last year, and it's by far the highest level in the Realtor.com data set going back to 2017, which is one reason why home prices are set to decline in Dallas, our number 9 city. You can see in Dallas County, inventory is up 46% year over year, which is now causing home values to go down on a month-over-month basis. However, Dallas is a big area. There's some areas of Dallas County which are really going down, could even be crashing, while there's other areas of Dallas which are still holding up. For instance, you can see month-over-month home price growth is heavily negative to the south of downtown Dallas, as well as to the east. While to the north, in neighborhoods like Highland Park, University Park, and up to Addison, prices are still going up by a decent amount. It's important to understand that Texas is a very local, fragmented housing market where certain areas are going down and going down fast, while other areas are still holding up. With values looking increasingly likely to drop in our number 8 city on this list, Killeen. Killeen is located to the north of Austin and also includes the city of Temple in its metro. And you can see the housing inventory here has spiked from a low of 500 during the pandemic to over 2,300 homes for sale. That's by far the highest level of supply in the last decade. You can see values in Killeen are down by 1.1% over the last year, but they're likely to drop more into the future due to this inventory spike. And this is a key point to understand as well, everyone, that there is a lag in the US housing market. I know some of you have been looking to buy a house in Texas for the last 3 years, and you're frustrated about the fact that prices haven't dropped by more already. I've been calling actually for a housing downturn in Texas for the last 3 years, and it's one that started to happen. However, I think a lot of people feel as if prices should have dropped by more already. And the reason they haven't is because sellers on the housing market are stubborn. Even when supply increases, even when the days on the market increases, it takes sellers time to really start to cut the price because a lot of these sellers either aren't paying attention to the market data or they saw their neighbor 2 years ago sell their house at a sky-high price and they still think they can get that price. But really what you got to pay attention to are those technical indicators like the supply, the inventory. There's about a 1-year lag between an inventory spike and then when home prices drop. In terms of where home values are dropping in Texas right now, where have they gone down the most over the last year? You can see it's the counties in blue on this map from Reventure App. But you can see the vast majority of counties in Texas are declining in terms of home values, and some areas are declining by a lot. And in some of these areas, prices have dropped by as much as 20% in the last 2 years. So important to understand if you're a home buyer in Texas or an investor in Texas that values are already dropping in most locations, and they'll likely continue to drop in 2025 due to this surge of excess inventory. And before I get to the rest of this list, I want to talk about why inventory is surging in Texas, because I think this can be confusing to a lot of people who live in Texas or are looking to move there, because the mainstream national narrative of Texas is that it's a boom state, that all the jobs are going there, that everyone's moving there. And so the perception is that the housing market should be strong and that there should be a low amount of inventory. But we're seeing the exact opposite. And the reason we're seeing the opposite in 2024 and 2025 is because there's been a slowdown in people moving into the state. You can see the Dallas Morning News just ran an article talking about how for the first time in 5 years, Texas was downgraded from an inbound migration state to a neutral migration state for those moving from other states in the US, according to a new report from Atlas Van Lines. Atlas Van Lines is a moving company, and they take their data on move-ins and move-outs and they apply it to show the high migration states, the low migration states. And what do you see is that Texas has now been downgraded to a balanced state. in terms of migration. You can also see this reflected in the home sale data in Texas. According to Redfin, there was 5,800 weekly adjusted home sales at the end of November in Texas. This is down 30% from the peak during the pandemic and is down about 10% from pre-pandemic norms. So this home sale data is also showing you the same slowdown in people moving in, people looking to buy houses. Now, for the number 7 through 5 cities on this list of where prices could drop in Texas in 2025, I'm going to do this in rapid fire succession. We're going to now talk about Texarkana. Texarkana, number 7, this is on the border with Arkansas. Values are down by 1.7% over the last year. Typical home value there is $168,000, which is affordable and is dropping. Additionally, nearby Sulphur Springs, which is a little bit to the east of Dallas, prices are down 6% over the last year due to big spike in inventory. And then I want to talk about our number 5 city in Texas where prices are going to drop in more detail here, everyone. This city is actually a county in the Dallas metro, Kaufman County. It includes the cities of Kaufman, Forney, and Kemp, as well as Terrell. You can see values in Kaufman are down 3.3% over the last year. But what I really want to show you is maybe the most amazing inventory spike we've seen in any city, county in America. We went from 700 homes for sale in Kaufman County before the pandemic to over 1,000 homes for sale today. That puts the Reventure App price forecast score at 29 out of 100, indicating heavy downward price pressure. And we're about to get into the top 4 on this list. Some bigger cities actually in Texas are in the top 4 here. One of these cities has seen prices drop by 20% already. However, before getting into this top 4, I want to talk about Kaufman County as well as some of the other high growth counties in Texas. Because one thing is for sure, Texas has some of the highest population growth areas in America. So for instance, in Kaufman County, the population grew by 44% over the last 5 years. If you go to the north of Houston, Montgomery County, the population grew by 20% over the last 5 years. If you go to the south of Austin, Hays County, the population grew by 26%. And if you go even further south, Comal County, between San Antonio and Austin, the population grew by 31%. So we have huge population growth figures here in these Texas counties. But as I said a second ago, these population growth figures have slowed while the home builders are still delivering a huge amount of homes. And it's these home builders that are really pushing up supply in a lot of these counties in red. And this is the catch-22 if you're a buyer or an investor in Texas, is that you have the positive growth over the last 5 years. However, the builders are still acting like the growth from the pandemic is going to happen into the future, which it won't. And so you're ending up with a big surplus of builder inventory, and you're also seeing investors sell out of the Texas housing market. This is the other big trend we're seeing, particularly Wall Street investors are now bailing on Texas. American Homes for Rent, Invitation Homes, Progress Residential, Blackstone. I see a lot of these Wall Street investors selling houses. And these investors are not going to come out and tell you that they're bearish on Texas, that they want to sell out of Texas, but they're just doing it. For instance, data from Parcel Labs is showing that in metros like Dallas and Houston, certain investors have anywhere from 3 to 9% of their portfolio on the market for sale right now. So according to Parcel Labs' data, Amherst Holdings has 3% of its portfolio in Dallas and Houston actively for sale at this moment, which is a lot. Meanwhile, Home Partners of America, who's owned by Blackstone, they have 9% of their portfolio in Houston for sale today, 7% of their portfolio in Dallas. You can also see American Homes for Rent has 3% of their portfolio in Dallas for sale, while Progress Residential has 2.1% of their portfolio in Houston for sale. And the thing to understand is that these investors aren't going to dump all their properties at once. That would hurt their sales price. Rather, they kind of segment and tier these properties in 3-4 month increments in terms of putting them on the market. So the fact that some of these investors have 3 to 5% of their entire portfolio in these Texas markets listed today is huge and indicates that a lot of them are exiting from the market. And the reason they're doing that is because it's really hard to cash flow as a rental investor in Texas. The property taxes are really high. Texas has the 8th highest property taxes of any state in America. You could see at a roughly 1.4% tax rate. That's over triple what the taxes are in Tennessee or Alabama. And the result is you really don't make much money after paying your expenses as a rental investor in Texas. And so that's why there's additional softness and additional inventory in the Texas market today. But now let's talk about our number 4 city in Texas where home values are going to drop in 2025. And folks, prices have already been dropping a lot in this area. They are down by almost 20% in the last 2 years here in Dripping Springs and Kyle, Texas. So I want you folks to check this out. Dripping Springs and Kyle are in Hays County, which is to the south of Austin. And this was a boom area during the pandemic, but it's not booming anymore. Home values are down 18.5%. They've gone from 480,000 to 391,000 over the last 2 years. And the reason is a huge surge in inventory. We have 1,400 homes for sale in Hays County today. Prior to the pandemic, there was only 900 homes for sale. So when you see this supply spike, and if this supply spike happens in your area, everyone, that's telling you home prices have a downward trajectory due to oversupply on the market. This score here, a 32 out of 100 for Hays County, is the Reventure App price forecast score. It's suggesting that prices are going to go down again next year. With values also set to drop in Round Rock and Georgetown, Texas, our number 3 area with declining prices. These cities are comprised in Williamson County, which is to the north of Austin. Values here are down by 19% over the last 2 years. It's dropped from 517,000 to 419,000 due to a big spike in inventory. But as I said earlier, values are not dropping in all areas of Texas. While there might be a crash playing out in and around Austin, in and around Central Texas, there's certain parts of the state which are weathering the storm and where values have yet to drop. One such area is Harris County in Houston. You can see in Harris County, values are still up by 0.3% over the last year. They're essentially flat, as well as over the last 2 years. They haven't gone down since the middle of 2022 either. And the reason is because the inventory in Harris County, while it has increased over the last year, it's still only now getting back to its pre-pandemic inventory levels. Again, folks, this is a local story. You can see values, if we zoom in on Houston, are going down and going down by a lot in certain pockets in the center of Houston to the east of Houston. But meanwhile, if you go to some nicer areas near Rice University, values are still going up 7% year over year. Another area where prices are holding fairly stable is Collin County to the north of Dallas. Collin County values are up 0.3% over the last year. They're also essentially flat month over month. And the Reventure App score for Collin County is a 42 out of 100, which does indicate downward price pressure. But this score of 42 out of 100 in Collin County is actually the highest of any area in North Texas. And the reason is due to the relative strength of the housing market in a city like Frisco. You can see values are still up 2.2% year over year in some of these Frisco zip codes. Even going over to Allen, values are still up slightly. And I'm not saying these are strong housing markets. I think all these markets are heading for some type of decline, but they're holding up better than the other cities on this list. However, I finally think we're going to see home prices drop in our number 2 area. This area has actually kind of avoided price decline so far, but the supply is spiking at a level that is absolutely ridiculous. People are selling out of this housing market. And this area is actually kind of becoming somewhat famous in housing market circles. Waco, Texas. Waco is located directly between Dallas and Austin, and it's the home of Chip and Joanna Gaines, the HGTV home flipper stars. And you can see this market is trending down fast. Prior to the pandemic, we had 717 homes for sale in Waco. That is now up to over 1,100 homes for sale. So this is yet another area in Texas where the supply is at the highest level that we have seen in about a decade. Meanwhile, homes are sitting on the market for 77 days, also the highest level that we have seen in about a decade, suggesting that prices in Waco will be on the decline in 2025. Now, before getting to the number 1 city in Texas where prices are already dropping and are going to continue to drop next year, I want to talk about how you as a buyer or an investor can make a more educated decision and better understand the trends in your market. You can do that by heading to www.reventure.app, which is the software program I created to help you all as home buyers access data on the housing market and have a better perspective about the future of home prices. In this video, we've been talking a lot about data points like home price growth year over year, as well as the for sale inventory trends. This data is available for almost every market in America, as well as almost every zip code in Texas. You can access the inventory and home value data for free on Reventure App, but also make sure to take a look at some of the other data points like the home price forecast. The Reventure App home price forecast attempts to predict the future direction of prices in the next 12 months in different cities and zip codes. If the score is below 50, that's more indicative of downward prices. If the score is above 50, that's more indicative of upward price movements. Before you put your hard-earned dollars on a house for a down payment or investment property, you're going to want to know the trends in the market and the potential future direction of prices. So you can access that home price forecast under a premium plan for $39 a month at Reventure App. And I think there's a lot of people who actually wish they could have had that home price forecast a couple years ago in our #1 market in Texas, where prices are dropping and will continue to drop next year. This is an area where values are down by 20% from peak, and they are still set to drop next year. Austin, Texas. In Austin, which is located in Travis County, you can see the typical value of a house is down by 19.1% over the last 2 years. Fairly substantial drop that continues into 2025. The Reventure App score for Travis County is a 34 out of 100, and you can see that this score predicted 2 years ago that prices in Austin would drop. The score went from a 76 to a 39 in the middle of 2022, and this was an early warning sign, an indication of the Austin housing market crash and correction. If you've been looking at this data 2.5 years ago, you would have seen it coming in Austin. You would have known to sell at the top. You would have known to wait as a buyer. Head to www.reventure.app right now to access that home price forecast for your city and zip code.